Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed your day off of math yesterday. Today we're just going to review a few things that we learned in chapter 12. It was a short chapter. We skipped a couple lessons, I don't know if you noticed, but we got right to the meat of the chapter, which was tally charts and table charts. So we're just going to review a little bit today. And then I'm going to get you ready for a quick quiz that we'll probably have in the day or two coming up. And then we're going to start on chapter 13. Okay, so let's start with number 8. It wants us to record the data in the tally chart. So this is, or as a tally chart. So this is the data that we're going to use to record. We are going to write down the different instruments, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to give tally marks for each person or child under that instrument. So it looks like these are the students that play a particular instrument. So let's start with the first one, percussion. So we're going to write percussion. Okay, and let's tally how many students play a percussion instrument. So let's go over here and count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So over on our tally chart, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, our next instrument is the string. So the string instruments, we're going to count how many we have over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to give 5 tally marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we have brass. So for brass, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 students. So 4 tally marks there. And then our last one is woodwinds. So we're going to write woodwinds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 5 tally marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's all there is to a tally chart. It usually, on one side, you're going to see labels. In this case, it's instruments. And on the other side, we're going to use tallies. And remember, this here is the way that we write 5 in tally marks, and the reason that they do that is you can go back and easily count by 5s and total them, right? So that's why they do that. So the next one, number 9, in this particular question, they're wanting us to use a pictograph. And all that you need to know about a pictograph is it just uses pictures instead of numbers. So for example, we're going to write the same thing that we did up on the tally chart. We're going to write one section is going to be, one section is going to be percussion. Then we're going to have another one for string. Okay, and then we're going to have a brass section. And we are also going to have a woodwinds section, just like we did in the tally chart. So in the pictograph, since we use pictures, somewhere along on a pictograph, sometimes off to the side, in this case it's below, you will see a key. So for this one, they're using musical instruments, and it's right here. So each musical instrument, and we're going to write what each one represents. In ours, it's going to represent 1. So since we had 7 students under percussion, we are going to write or draw 7 musical instruments. So I forget what these are called. We're going to try and fit 7. There's 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if you go off a little bit, that's okay, 7. Okay, so for string, remember we had 5. So now we're going to do 5 keys. 5 musical instruments. 1, whoops, I might have made that one too big. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, because each musical instrument represents 1. So how many students are on brass? We discovered there's 4. So we are going to do 4 here. 1, that's 2, that's 3, and that's 4. Okay, what about the woodwinds? We had 5 for woodwinds too. So again, we're going to do 5 musical instruments. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and there's 5. Try not to go into that next chart because we're going to use that one for number 10. Now, we basically did the same thing. Number 8 was tallies. Number 2, we used what's called a pictograph. And before we move on to the bar graph in number 10, I want to show you different pictures of what a pictograph might look like. Okay, so here's a better picture than my drawing looked of a pictograph. Just wanted you to see something a little more organized. I didn't have a whole lot of room to draw the pictures in that other one. And since we really didn't cover it in this lesson too much or at all, I wanted to make sure that you understood what a pictograph was. So a pictograph is just using pictures to count as votes. So instead of tally marks or bars, you would use pictures. So in this one, if you look down at the key, down here, it's 1 donut or 1 picture of a donut equals 2 donuts. So off to the side, they had the type of donuts and then how many people like these donuts or what have you. And then so you see on the left-hand side, they've written all of the types of donuts, and then they use donuts across to count for how many pick those types of donuts. Okay, so that's all a pictograph is. Let's see if I'm going to move that right over there. Okay, so now we're going to use the pictograph that we used with the musical notes, and we are now going to use or put the information into a bar graph. So here's our bar graph. They've already given us the instruments. They've put brass, woodwinds, strings, and percussion. They did not fill out the numbers here, and they also did not give a title to this graph. So let's go ahead and write a title. We're going to call it orchestra instruments. So orchestra instruments. And hopefully you have a little more room than I do. Okay, so now as far as the numbers, we're going to count by 2. So we're going to go 2, 4, 6, 8, and the top will be 10. So if you remember how to do a bar graph, we're just going to use bars instead of tally marks or pictures to represent, in this case, the votes or the amount of students for each instrument. So let's do the brass first. So for brass, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to go up to our 4 line. We're going to draw a line across, and I'm actually going to choose a different color. So for brass, we had 4. And we're going to color that in. Okay, that's for brass. For woodwinds, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now there's no 5 mark, but we know that we can go in between the 4 and the 6, which in a bar graph represents 5. So we're going to color that in for woodwinds. Okay, now we have strings, and it doesn't matter if you have your bars touching or not. I kind of moved this one a little too over to the left, but that's okay. For strings, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did we have 5 for woodwinds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we did. Okay, so strings, we're going to do the same thing. Let's choose a different color. And if you wanted to make these touch, you could. Whoops, I am not. Went a little too far. So I'm going to go right where that one is, since they're both equal to 5. Okay, I'm going to color that in. And then our last one is percussion. And for percussion, we had 7. So I'm going to use yellow for that. I'm going to go between the 6 and the 8. I'm going to draw a bar going down. Okay, so that was a bar graph. So we did a tally graph or a tally chart, a pictograph, and a bar chart. Okay, so let's answer the questions. Number 11 asks, how many students are not playing either a brass or a string instrument? So let's go over and let's count how many people are not playing brass or strings. So we're not going to count those that are. We are only counting those that are not playing brass or string. So let's count how many we had for woodwinds. We had 5, right? So 5 plus how many played percussion, which was here, and that was 7. So we can say that 12 students are not playing brass or string. Okay, number 12. Hunter is sick today. Miss Miller will practice with half of the students today. How many students will practice with Miss Miller today? Okay, so this is a two-part question. The first thing we need to do is count how many students total. So let's go up to our tally chart and let's count by 5s when we can, and then we will tally how many students in all. So we have 5, 10, 15, right? We counted all the 5s first. Now we're going to add 4 more, so 15 plus 4 is 19. And we're going to add 2 more, so 20, 21. So we have a total of 21 students. But it says that she's going to practice with half the students. So we need to take 21 and divide it by 2. Okay, so let's do our division over here the way that we learned it. Whoops. So I'm going to have one box here and one box here. And I'm going to divide 21 into these 2 boxes. So 1, 2, make it a little bit bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We can't have a half a student. If you remember, Hunter is sick today. So this one extra student is actually Hunter. Oops. So we don't have to worry about that extra student. Instead, we could just count how many are in this box, either one, and we can find out how many students are going to practice with Miss Miller today. So let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 students are going to practice with Miss Miller. You could have also subtracted the 1, Hunter, from the 21 and then had 20 divided by 2. Either way, you would have gotten 10 students that are going to practice with Miss Miller today. Okay, now let's look at our charts because they're asking in number 13, which 2 instruments do an equal number of students play? So we could easily go back to our graph. That's the easiest one to look at and see the 2 that are exactly the same. So if we look here, these 2 bars are at exactly the same height, so we know that it's woodwinds, and strings. Okay, let's turn the page to page 743. Okay, line plots. Let's look at number 14. It says that Matthew measured the length of some bugs. He displayed the data in the line plot. Find 5 of Matthew's errors. Okay, so here's our line plot. we have fractions for our numbers along the line plot, and then we have the x's that represent how many bugs measured that length. So let's go over, here's our data over here. So it says that for 1/4 inch, we have 1 bug. So let's check that over here. Oh, I'm looking at the 1/4 and there's no x there. So right off the bat, we can say he is missing 1 for 1/4. That's the first error. Okay, let's look at 2/4. It says he should have 1 bug for 2/4. We come over here, 1x, that's correct. So let's look at 3/4 inch. Should have 5 there, so let's count 1, 2, 3, and 4. So he's also missing 1 for 3/4 inch. Okay, so that's the second. Let's look at 4/4. If you remember, that would be equal to 1 inch, because any number over itself in a fraction is equal to 1. So we have 4, should have 4 x's over 4/4. 1, 2, 3. So he is also missing 1 for 4/4. Okay, let's look at 1 1/4 inch. He should have 5 x's there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're okay there. And then our last one, 1 2/4 inches. Should have 1 bug there. There's 1 x, so there's no further mistakes. Okay, let's look at 15. And it's asking us to refer to exercise 14. If the bugs that are 4/4 inches in length were laid end to end, what would be their total length? Okay, so remember I said what 4/4 inches means. It is equal to 1 inch. So if we have 4 bugs and they each equal 1 inch and we were to lay them end to end, we would have 4 inches. Okay, let's read number 16 together. There are 3 elementary schools on Brown Street. PS Elementary, or PSE, PS Middle, PSM, and PS High, PSH. PSE is 1 mile from PSM. PSH and PSE are 2 miles apart, and PSH is 3 miles from PSM. Use the facts above. What is the order of the schools on the street? Okay, so let's start with PSE. Oops. PSE is 1 mile from PSM. Okay, let me use a different color. 1 mile. Okay, now PSH and PSE are 2 miles apart. So I'm going to use that one from here to there. That's going to be PSH. Okay, so that's 2 miles. Now PSH is 3 miles from PSM. Okay, so that means that this is not going to work because here I only have 2 miles. So if I need for the PSE and PSH to be 2 miles apart, but I also need for the middle school to be 1 mile away from the elementary school, it's going to have to go the other way. So I'm going to erase this one here. And I'm actually going to move PSE a little bit further down just to have more room. So, oops. That's going to be PS Elementary School. Okay, so I still have 2 miles from the elementary school to the high school. But now I need to go the other way, 1 mile, and that would be the middle school. Okay, so now I have 3 miles because I have 1 mile here and 2 miles here between PSM, which is the middle school, and the high school. And then I have 1 mile between the middle school and the elementary school. And then I have the elementary school 2 miles away from the high school. So if you notice, I didn't get that on the first time. There was a little bit of trial and error on this question, and that's okay. It's also important that you see that I drew it out. So I used a model. Those are great strategies to use when you're looking at word problems so that you can visualize it and you can see that. And sometimes that'll help you work through the problem a little bit easier, right? It's a few strategies that we learned this year. Okay, our test practice and our final question. Number 17. According to the line plot, how many pets do most students have? Now, line plots I like, just like bar graphs, because you can look at it and instantly see which one has more X's. So obviously number 1 has the most X's. I don't even need to count them. I can see that there's more than 2 and more than there are 0. So how many pets do you have? According to the line plot, how many pets do most students have? And we can see that 1 was the one with the most X's, so it's 1 pet. Okay, that's it. So for homework tonight, I want you to go back and do the vocabulary check on page 741, and it's just the crossword puzzle. So it's just filling out the vocabulary words to go with the clues at the bottom of the page, and that's your homework. I will see you guys on the next lesson.